Hi, my name is Brandon English. I'm the Director of Loss and Healing here at the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. I'm joined by the lovely Sarah Ash, who is featured in our 2018 International Survivors of Suicide Loss Day documentary, A Daughter's Journey. So today we're going to have a conversation with Sarah. She's going to talk a little bit about her loss and her experience with the filming and kind of how Survivor Day and AFSP and talking about her loss has helped her. But for those watching, Survivor Day is a day, the Saturday before Thanksgiving every year, that was proclaimed by Harry Reid, who lost his father to suicide. And this is the 20th year of the International Survivors of Suicide Loss Day. This year will be November 17th. And it's a day of really hope and healing for communities around the globe, everywhere from Russia to St. Lucia to countries in Africa, of course the United States and Canada, for loss survivors around the globe to come together and realize they're not alone and have a place they feel safe and comfortable talking and sharing and learning about their loss and connecting with their communities. And so that's our Survivor Day in a nutshell. And today we're going to show you a little bit of our trailer that will be screened at over 360 sites across the globe on November 17th. But also as a reminder, if you are struggling or you're in crisis, please reach out to the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255 or 800-273-TALK. Of course, there's always the crisis text line. You can text TALK to 741-741. So without further ado, we'd like to show you our PSA, our trailer for A Daughter's Journey.
What was most helpful for me after my dad's death was talking about it to anyone that would listen. I need to be happy. My dad would want me to be happy. Because of my loss, I know that my capacity for love and helping others is so strong.
All right, thank you for watching. Because you get a sample of what you can expect, the full-length film, as well as other activities and discussion groups at sites across the world. So now this is Sarah. She came from Oakland, New Jersey, and she is a loss survivor. And so we're just going to have a conversation, ask some questions. I hope you join in, and if you have anything, you can always ask on Facebook here. But Sarah, you were 13 when you lost your dad, and now you're 22. How has your view of your grief or how you've processed your grief changed over that almost decade?
When I first lost my dad, which I knew that he had died by suicide right away, my mom told us right away that he had died by suicide. So as a young 13-year-old, I felt kind of lost in that explanation, and I didn't understand why and what happened. And I felt angry and confused. This was my dad who I knew and loved, and now he wasn't here anymore. So I dealt with a lot of different emotions. And for a few years, I sometimes say that I played the part of a grieving young teen. I think I went through all the steps that I thought I should go through, and I did all of the work, but I don't think I really processed it. It took me a few years to process it, really. And through the really long, hard work, it has brought me to this sense of empathy and understanding for what my dad went through, his struggles. And now I feel connected to him in a way that I never have since he passed. And I feel grateful for the short 13 years that I had with him and all that he taught me. So I've come a long way, but it's been a lot of work.
Do you feel like you still maybe have work to go? Or
Definitely. I think there's no end to grief. You grieve your whole life, so it doesn't stop. There are no steps that, once you experience this emotion, you'll move on to the next, and you'll never feel that way again. Like, grief comes at unexpected times in your life. It doesn't always come on those big momentous days where you're like, oh, I'm really going to miss Dad this day because I'm doing something so big. Sometimes I miss my dad most on a Wednesday when I'm getting coffee or I hear a song. So it's a lifelong journey that doesn't end, but along the road you find people and experiences that help you through that journey, and that's kind of all you can do.
Yeah, I mean, and just having known you since you were a young teenager to where you are now, like I've seen that. I've seen when maybe you were angry and anxious to where now you've grown and really come into your own and feel comfortable talking and sharing your story with all of us. You know, that's pretty awesome. What tools have you found probably most helpful in your healing journey, and why?
I say the most helpful thing to talk about my grief and my loss is talking and sharing my story, which at first was not easy. I started attending a children's bereavement camp just a few months after my dad died, and I had to get taken out of the car, not by force, but pretty much, and I was put into this group of strangers, adults and children, and I told my story, and I didn't hold anything back, and I was with children who have gone through what I've gone through, and I wasn't alone in my loss. And I would say being involved with a bereavement camp for the last 9 years has been the most impactful, creating relationships and bonds with people who I would have never met if my dad had never passed away. And so they're friends that have turned into my family who I can talk to about my loss, but who I can also talk to about random things. And I've attended support groups for children, again, who have experienced loss. And I've found connections in those. And sometimes you just need a lifeline to reach out to, and that's a text away. And all you have to say is, you know, I'm really missing my dad today. And you don't even need them to tell you anything to comfort you. You just need someone else to know that you're really missing your dad that day. So finding those connections has been really important, and talk therapy and really getting out my emotions, because sometimes they don't come out in the most obvious ways. Like you said, I have a lot of anxiety that comes out usually towards my loss, and I didn't expect my dad to die, so there's a lot of unknowns and feeling out of control because I wasn't in control of my loss. So dealing with that has been really important to kind of see what my emotions are and what's behind those and how I can work through them in a cohesive way.
So really those connections that you form, even though it's because of something bad and traumatic and sudden, you've formed lifelong bonds just by being in a room with someone that...
Yeah. We kind of say, you know, it's the club that you never wanted to be a part of, but once you are in it, you can't imagine having it any other way. I would never... Obviously, I would wish anything to have my dad back with me, but to think of a life where I don't have those connections with the people that I've met because of my dad's death, I also can't imagine what that would be like.
Are there any, on the opposite side of that kind of coin, were there any strategies or tools that you used or tried that you didn't care for, and, you know, were glad that maybe you just gave it, you know, gave it a try?
I would say finding the right therapist or the right support group. Sometimes you have to go to more than one. You shouldn't just say, oh, I tried this once and it didn't work for me, so this whole strategy isn't going to work. Really putting in the effort on your end, which can be a lot of work, but you have to realize that the reward at the end of it is really worth it.
Yeah, I think that's really valuable insight, because not just the first one you try is always going to be the one you click with, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did it take you some time to find someone you liked, or?
Luckily, I found one therapist who has kind of become a member of my family. But yeah, I saw another therapist before her, and it wasn't a bad experience, but I didn't make that connection.
Right.
And maybe all you're looking for in a therapist is just not random, but just anyone that you can talk to about what you're going through. For me, I needed more of like a deeper connection with the person that I was talking to and exploring all of these emotions with, and I got really lucky. But I know some people, it does take a few times, and that's okay. And it kind of stinks when you're going through that, like not having the right person, but it's really worth it to look for the right one.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. That's amazing advice. Yeah, so you mentioned being connected to all these different people in the club that you don't want to be part of, and I know I've heard that before. So, how does it feel though for you to be with other like suicide loss survivors? And I know that what the programs you were involved in wasn't always just suicide loss, and I know you've done some since that have just suicide. How does it feel to walk into that room or be in that room where everyone's story might be a little different, but it's all something very similar? So how does that kind of feel, or how do those connections feel?
Yeah. I think when you are going into a room or a situation where you know no one, but you know that everyone in that room has experienced the same thing that you have, especially when that one thing you've experienced can sometimes make you feel totally alone, you feel this connection without even having to say out loud, I lost a loved one to suicide, because everyone knows, and they could be people that you would never meet in your everyday life. I have a lot of friends and young adults especially who I have met through our suicide losses, and I would have never met them any other way, but we bond this instant connection, and you don't have to explain your loss, you don't have to say anything, you can just be there, and sometimes that is really all that matters. And now I'm in a relationship with a suicide survivor, and so it's just another connection that is indescribable.
This is like, obviously we all know there's some stigma surrounding suicide, so when you're in that room and you don't necessarily feel that kind of evaporates. Do you feel that way? That kind of just like disappears when you walk into that kind of room with?
You don't have to explain anything, like nothing. And you can talk about your loss as much or as little as you want. You don't even have to talk about loss. It's just like this connection, and everyone feels it. And because a lot of times in your everyday life, some people feel like they have to hide their loss or explain it in a different way, and you don't have to do that. When you are with other suicide survivors, it's kind of effortless.
Yeah, and I mean, you're absolutely right. I think that's again great advice. And I know a lot of people that may be thinking about coming to a Survivor Day event or even watching online might be a little nervous about that. So a lot of people out there have recently lost someone. Do you have anything to offer people who have maybe advice, or someone that's recently lost someone to suicide, kind of based on your own healing journey, someone that's just kind of entering this journey for the first time?
I think I would suggest or hope that, as hard as it is to try to feel the depth of your emotions, and it's easy to not want to because they're scary emotions and it's a lot, and most of the time you just want to push them down because you don't want to feel them. But from experience, I know that if I had felt those emotions earlier, I probably would have avoided some really, really rough times in my life. But it's a process, and if that's what it takes and that's your journey, then that's totally fine. I think a lot of suicide survivors feel alone in their grief and in the world. So attending a Survivor Day event, I think, would be amazing. Just, I think it would really be the first best step that you could make.
And it takes a lot of courage to get up and do that, but it's worth it, I think, right?
Yeah.
It would be worth it to be with those people.
Yeah. You don't even need to talk. Just go.
Just
you
be
know?
there,
Mhm.
be present. Yeah. So, what was it like for you filming this documentary this year? And was it emotional for you, or was it hard? Was it easy? What was your experience going through this like 4-day whirlwind film
Yeah.
shoot that we did?
It took a lot for me to prepare to even start it, because personally, my dad had a serious mental illness that he had for many years, and he was very ashamed of himself and didn't really talk about it. So here I am, like almost 9 years later, and I'm gonna say, you know what, world, this is my dad, and this is all that he experienced, and I was really, really worried that he wouldn't have been happy with it, that he would have not wanted me to share his story, because it's his story as much as it is mine. But I know the type of person that my dad was, and if he could help one person through his story, he would say, all right, Sarah, tell everyone that you want to tell, that's fine. So really prepping for it was really hard. Filming it for 3.5, 4 days, it went by so fast. I don't think I even had time to really process it. I was emotional at parts, but for the most part, it was like, okay, we're doing this, and we're gonna go on to the next thing. And then after filming got done, I kind of had to step back and process it. And it took me a few weeks, and I'm still doing that. And now that the film is about to come out, I'm like, oh my God, all these people are gonna see, and like, there's no going back now. But I'm so grateful for the opportunity, and it means a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I know 4 days, it's like everything was like happening all at once, and it's just you don't have time to process
Right.
it. But I mean, the way you told, when people do come to the events and see it, the way you told your story, I think, is so universal, no matter what the loss may be. It's just that you have been through so much and grown so much in almost 10 years and 9 years that I think that 4 days is going to be worth it for everybody across the globe.
Yeah, definitely.
Is there anything you've learned since then? Like, have you learned anything from filming and talking about it, and even coming here to AFSP and filming and doing this Facebook Live event? I mean, have you learned anything through the process since we kind of started?
I'll repeat something I said earlier. As a 13-year-old who had recently lost her dad, I made this like internal promise to myself that at some point in my entire life, I was going to stand in front of a room and say, my dad died by suicide. And less than 9 years later, I have done that many, many times, more than I can count, to rooms full of strangers. And I have a film that's going to be shown like around the world, which is crazy. And I'm very proud of where I'm at and grateful for the people that have gotten me here. But I think it's also important to realize that you don't have to tell a room full of strangers or even people that you know how your loved one died. Maybe tell one person, and that will be life-changing for you, or write it on a piece of paper. Like, you don't have to broadcast it to the world to have it be life-changing for you.
And then I guess finally, as we kind of wrap it up, is there anything you would wish for those seeing your story for the first time, those that are at a Survivor Day event or watching Survivor Day Live? Is there anything that you would wish for them to take away from everything you shared with us?
I think the most important thing is to realize that you're not alone in your grief, and that grief is a lifelong journey, and there's no end, which sometimes sounds really sucky. You can't even change that, but you grow so much and have amazing connections, and you're going to be okay.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, Sarah, just having known you for so long and just seeing you grow, I mean, I think everything you've told us today is just evergreen for everybody, and kind of going through this journey, starting this journey, whether they're 15 years out from their loss or it was a week ago. I mean, you have grown so much, and I think you're a testament to really, taking in that loss, processing it, understanding it, and moving forward with it. You don't move on from it, but you move forward with it. And I think the lesson that we can learn from you and everything that you show us in the film is one of those things. So thank you for sharing that. So for those at home, remember, if you were struggling or if anything we've said today and you feel like you need someone to talk to, please call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255 or 800-273-TALK. Or the crisis text line, you can text TALK to 741-741. And if you were thinking about attending a Survivor Day, even if you're on the fence or you're nervous, check out afsp.org/Survivor Day. You can find a site near you. Like I said, we have over 360 sites across the globe, in the United States and Canada, of course, or you'll be able to find one hopefully close to you. And if you can't find one close to you, or maybe you're a little nervous about attending, you can always attend our Survivor Day live event where we will show the film that Sarah's featured in at 4:30 p.m. Eastern on our website, afsp.org. It'll be streamed just like you're watching right now on Facebook Live. I really encourage you to take that step, to take that one initial leap to coming into a Survivor Day program. And really maybe step out of your comfort zone to really talk and share about your story. Or like Sarah said, just be there, just be present, just sit. So please, again, visit us at afsp.org/Survivor Day. And thank you so much, Sarah, for being here today.
Thank you so much.
And sharing your story. And thank you for everybody tuning in on Facebook. And have a great afternoon.